All right, welcome back, everyone. We're going to be taking a deep dive today
Looking forward to it.
into interprovincial trade barriers in Canada. It's been in the news a lot. Um, I've got a ton of sources here that you sent me, interviews with economists and premiers, news clips, even heard from some frustrated business owners.
It's one of those issues, that sort of bubbles under the surface and every so often kind of boils over.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a hot topic. So today we're going to unpack how much these barriers are costing you, the listener, and what, if anything, you can actually do about it.
It's interesting. We Canadians pride ourselves on being, free traders with the world. We've got trade agreements with Europe and Asia and the Americas.
Right.
But sometimes you try to get a bottle of wine across a provincial border and it feels like you need a passport.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm all for supporting local, but if it means I'm paying like 20% more for something just because it crossed a provincial line, I start to wonder,
Yeah.
what's going on here?
Well, let's ground this in reality. Okay,
Uh-huh.
take an example. Imagine you're a craft brewer in Ontario
Okay.
and you're trying to get your beer into the Quebec market. You want to sell to those thirsty Quebecois.
Yeah.
We heard from one brewer who spent 8 years and $100,000 navigating the regulations just to get their product on the shelves in Quebec.
8 years. That's crazy.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just to sell beer a couple provinces over.
Okay, so these barriers are clearly real.
Oh, yeah.
They're impacting businesses. But what about the listener? Where does that leave, the average person?
Well, think about something like the dairy industry.
Right. Yeah.
Big beneficiaries of supply management.
Right.
That limits competition from other provinces.
Right.
Keeps prices high. But what about you at the grocery store? You're paying more for your milk, your cheese. Is that a trade-off you're really happy with?
Yeah, I see your point. These things that might seem kind of far off in terms of policy actually hit us right in the wallet in our daily lives.
And it's not just dairy, it's produce, it's even, specialized medical services, all sorts of things.
And what about jobs? I mean, one of the economists that you had me look at said that, getting rid of these barriers could actually boost Canada's GDP by 4%. That's adding $200 billion to the national economy.
It's a huge number.
Yeah. But, what does that mean for me in my province?
Right. Well, one study we saw highlighted specifically that it could boost your province's tech sector by 10%,
Wow.
create thousands of new good-paying jobs.
Yeah, that's real money coming back into the community.
Exactly. It's not just a number on a spreadsheet. This is about real people's lives.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it sounds great, right? More competitive economy.
Right.
We're innovating more. Prices go down. Wages go up. But honestly, I'm a little skeptical. I mean, the feds have been talking about this for years, and things just seem to move so slowly. Is there anything in these sources that gives us reason to think it might be different this time?
I was skeptical too. I mean, I've been following this debate for a long time, but, diving into these sources, there are a few glimmers of hope, maybe. The Canadian Free Trade Agreement, the CFTA, that was supposed to be the tool to eliminate these barriers. Now, it hasn't been perfect, far from it,
Right.
but there are signs that it's, starting to get some teeth.
Okay. You're talking about the internal trade court, right?
Right.
This is where provinces can actually challenge each other's protectionist measures.
Right.
I mean, is that really a game changer, or is this just more bureaucratic wrangling?
Well, it's early days, it's a new thing. But some of the experts we heard from think that it does have the potential to be a really powerful tool.
Okay.
Even the threat of legal action could be enough to get provinces to the table, negotiate in good faith, and maybe reduce some of these barriers before it even gets to court.
So there's some hope for change.
Hmm.
But, we got to talk about the elephant in the room. It's not just about economics here, right? It's politics.
It's all about politics.
Yeah.
Always has been. We got to remember the context, the history here. Canada, we started as a bunch of independent colonies. They kind of reluctantly gave up a little bit of power to the federal government.
Right.
And the provinces have always, fiercely protected their autonomy, their right to make their own decisions. They're not going to give that up easily.
Yeah, and we're seeing that play out, right? I mean, the premier of Alberta, the wine war with BC,
Classic Canadian political maneuvering.
it seems like a pretty petty thing to get into a fight over.
Yeah.
Wine, come on.
It might seem silly on the surface, but, it costs businesses and consumers real money.
Yeah.
And it shows you how hard it is to get these provinces to think about the collective good, the national interest, instead of just what's good for them, their own little fiefdom.
Yeah. And there's also this idea that came up a lot in the sources that Ontario kind of benefits disproportionately from freer trade. Do you think that creates resentment?
Well, there's definitely this sense out there that, Ontario's kind of the big dog.
Right.
And they're going to, kind of run roughshod over everybody else.
Yeah, so freer trade might actually lead to more disunity. Some of these provinces, they're worried about being dominated, not brought together.
It's a legitimate concern, and it's something we have to think about very carefully. But it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game, right?
Okay.
A more prosperous Canada is good for everybody,
Right.
even if some provinces see bigger gains than others.
Okay.
The key is making sure that those benefits are shared equitably. That's where the federal government has to step up.
So can they actually force change, or are they stuck just kind of playing referee in this never-ending provincial tug of war? I guess that's what we'll have to dig into next.
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
That's what we're here to explore.
Exactly.
Stay tuned. One thing that keeps coming up, as I'm going through all this, all these reports, these interviews, are the potential downsides, unintended consequences. It's not just as simple as saying, okay, everybody, free trade, and flipping a switch, right?
Unintended consequences, huh? Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of downsides are we talking about?
One of the things that people worry about is that when you try to harmonize regulations across all the provinces, you might end up with a kind of race to the bottom.
Instead of raising the bar, we're lowering it for everybody.
Exactly. So imagine, the provinces are trying to attract businesses and they start saying, okay, well, we'll weaken our environmental regulations. We'll have, lower labor standards. It's a real concern.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's not just about getting cheaper maple syrup from Quebec, right?
Right.
We want to make sure that doesn't come at the cost of, the environment or workers' rights.
We need to be smart about this. We need to think about the long term, not just, a quick fix or a cheap product.
Yeah. Okay, so let's
Yeah.
let's assume for a second we can get over those hurdles. What happens then? What does a truly free and open Canadian market actually look like?
Well, a lot of the sources are actually quite optimistic. They talk about unleashing a wave of innovation and entrepreneurship, right?
Okay.
Because when Canadian businesses can operate across the country easily, it forces everybody to be better, right?
What?
It drives innovation. It makes companies more efficient because they've got to compete.
So it's like this nationwide incubator, new ideas, new businesses popping up everywhere.
Exactly. And remember those high prices we were talking about?
Yeah.
When you've got more competition, that often leads to lower prices for consumers.
Ooh, I like that. More money in my pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's not just about saving a few bucks on your groceries, right? It's about a better job market. Imagine if you could move to another province and you don't have to go through all this red tape to get your credentials recognized or to, start working in a new place.
Okay, yeah, that'd be huge.
It means businesses can attract the best people and workers have more opportunities. And often that translates into higher wages for everybody.
Okay, I gotta say, this is starting to sound a little utopian, right?
Mhm.
We've got more competitive economy, lower prices, higher wages. I mean, is this realistic, or are we getting a little carried away?
Well, I mean, obviously there are always challenges, right?
Yeah.
But what we're seeing in these sources is that the potential upside is huge. It's worth exploring. It's worth working towards.
Okay, so far we've been talking mostly about the economic benefits, right?
Mhm.
But what about the bigger picture? What about society? What about, Canadian culture? Could this actually make Canada more unified, or are we just going to end up with a bunch of provinces squabbling over, a slightly bigger piece of the pie?
That's where it gets really interesting, I think. Because, when people from different parts of the country can easily work together, travel together, do business together, it builds connections, right?
Right.
It breaks down those regional barriers and it creates more opportunities for people to interact with each other, to learn about each other's cultures, right?
So instead of thinking of ourselves as like Ontarians or Albertans or whatever, we
Mhm.
start thinking of ourselves as Canadians first.
Exactly. And that could lead to a stronger national identity, a greater appreciation for all the different, the amazing diversity that we have in this country.
Hmm.
What's your take on that? I mean, you've been following this debate closely. Do you think that's a realistic outcome?
I don't know. I mean, it's a beautiful idea, right? But I also see the other side of it. I think some of these provinces, especially the smaller ones, the ones that don't have as strong of an economy,
Hmm.
they're going to be worried about being dominated by the bigger provinces.
Yeah.
I mean, could that lead to more resentment?
That's a really good point, and it's something that we need to address head on. But, the research does suggest that if you have the right policies in place, you can actually make sure that the benefits of a freer trade are shared more equally. So maybe that means, investing in infrastructure or education in some of the less developed regions, or maybe it means creating mechanisms to make sure that small businesses can compete effectively with the big guys.
So it's not just about, opening the floodgates and hoping for the best. It's about being strategic and making sure everybody benefits.
Exactly. It's about partnership, it's about collaboration, it's about recognizing that, we're all in this together.
Okay, so let's say we can find that balance. We can, thread that needle between competition and cooperation. What are some of the actual things we could do? What are some of the steps we could take to get to that open Canadian market that we've been talking about?
Well, one of the things that a lot of the experts talked about was the need for regulatory harmonization.
Okay, so instead of having 10 different sets of rules for everything, from trucking to wine labeling, we try to streamline things. We make it easier for businesses to operate across the country. But isn't that just a logistical nightmare?
It would definitely be a huge undertaking. There's no doubt about that.
Ah,
But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to sacrifice, quality or safety standards.
right.
It's about finding common ground. It's about getting rid of unnecessary duplication and red tape. And think about all the time and money that businesses could save if they didn't have to, jump through all these hoops just to sell their products in a different province.
I see your point. But let's be real. Getting all the provinces to agree on anything is like, herding cats. It's going to take a lot of political will.
No question about it. And that's why, the federal government has to take the lead here. They need to bring the provinces together, help them find common ground, and develop a shared vision for what a more integrated Canadian economy could look like.
But do you really think they can overcome the province's resistance? I mean, some of these premiers, they seem more interested in scoring political points than actually, working together.
It's a challenge, definitely, but I don't think it's impossible. More and more people are realizing that in today's world, Canada is stronger when we work together,
Right.
when we're not fighting amongst ourselves. And the economic benefits of a more integrated market, they're huge. And that might be enough to persuade even the most stubborn premiers.
Okay, so regulatory harmonization is one piece of the puzzle. What
Yeah.
what else? What else can we do to break down these barriers, get things moving more freely across the country?
Infrastructure. We need better infrastructure,
Mm.
particularly in transportation and logistics. We got to invest in better rail lines, better roads, better ports. Think of it as building the arteries of a healthy national economy.
I like that. Yeah, building those connections. And it's not just about physical infrastructure, right? What about the digital world? I mean, high-speed internet, that's essential for businesses all across the country to be able to participate in the digital economy.
Absolutely. We got to bridge that digital divide. We got to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to innovate, to create, to build businesses, and that means investing in digital infrastructure in
Mhm.
every corner of the country. We got to think big here. We got to be strategic.
Okay, so we've got regulatory harmonization, we've got infrastructure. Of course, there's that internal trade court that we were talking about earlier. Are there any other tools in the toolbox? Any other strategies that could help us get to that free and open Canadian market that we've been discussing?
One of the things that has been getting a lot of attention lately is this idea of mutual recognition of professional credentials.
So instead of making a doctor or an engineer jump through all these hoops to get recertified when they move to a new province,
Yeah,
we just say, look, if you're qualified in one province, you're qualified across the country.
exactly. It makes it easier for people to move to where their skills are needed. And that's good for the economy. It's good for workers. It gives people more flexibility, more opportunity.
It sounds great,
Yeah.
but I'm sure there's going to be pushback from those professional organizations. They're worried about standards, about making sure that everybody is qualified. How do you ensure quality control in a system like that?
It's a challenge, definitely. But, the experts who've been looking at this say that with careful planning, with good consultation, you can design a system that works. a system that streamlines the process but doesn't compromise on quality or safety.
So it's about, trusting the systems that are already in place in other provinces.
And recognizing that, we live in a mobile world now, people move around, and we need to have a system that allows people to use their skills, to use their talents wherever they choose to live. And that's good for everyone.
It's becoming really clear that this is not just an economic issue.
Yeah.
This is something that impacts all of us. It's about building a better country. It's about
Yeah.
making Canada more prosperous, more united, more competitive in the world.
Couldn't agree more.
And I think it's time for us to take a minute and just kind of reflect on everything that we've learned so far. And then when we come back, we can talk about what it means for you, the listener, how you could be part of shaping the future of interprovincial trade in this country.
Looking forward to it.
All right, so we're back. And I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. We talked about a lot, but now we got to bring it all home. What does this deep dive into interprovincial trade barriers actually mean for you, the listener?
We've thrown around, big numbers, GDP, job creation,
Hmm.
national unity, but we haven't really asked what's in it for you then, sitting there listening to us right now.
Right, exactly. How would a freer flow of goods and services, people across the country actually change your life?
Think about it. What if your grocery bill was noticeably lower because, there were no restrictions on food coming in from other provinces? Or imagine you're looking for a new job. Could you find a better opportunity? Maybe your dream job. If it was easier to move to another province without having to, jump through all those hoops to get your credentials recognized?
And it's not just about individual gains, right? I mean, what if your community saw a boost in investment, economic activity, because it was easier for businesses to operate across provincial borders?
Right.
That means more jobs in your town, more businesses on your street.
Absolutely. And those aren't just, pie in the sky ideas. The experts we've been looking at, they say these are real possibilities if we can just get over these barriers.
Okay, but as we said, it's not a quick fix. It's going to take work. And not just from, politicians and bureaucrats. It's going to take, everyday Canadians like you getting involved. So where do you fit into all of this?
You actually have more power than you think. This
Mm.
deep dive has shown us that, this isn't just some abstract policy debate happening in Ottawa. This stuff affects your life every day. And when you understand it, when you see the challenges, the opportunities, you become a more informed citizen. And that's where change starts.
Okay, that sounds good, but what can I actually do? I mean, what can I do today to make a difference?
First off, stay informed. Keep learning about this issue. Go beyond the headlines. Look at those sources we've talked about. Talk to people in your community. The more people understand how much we all benefit from freer trade, the more pressure there is on the politicians to do something about it. And don't underestimate the power of just speaking up. Talk to your elected officials. Write a letter to the editor. Start a conversation online. Make your voice heard. Let them know that you support policies that break down these barriers. Policies that help the economy grow, that create jobs, that bring the country together.
Yeah, and think about the businesses you support. Look for products that are made in other provinces. Buy that bottle of wine online, even if it means, figuring out how to get it shipped across provincial lines. Every little bit helps.
It all sends a message.
One thing that really jumped out at me from all these sources is just how many people don't even know this is an issue. They don't realize how much it's costing them. So just talking about it, raising awareness, that's a huge first step.
Absolutely. We need to change the way we think about this. Instead of seeing other provinces as competitors, we need to see them as partners, as collaborators in building a stronger country.
It's going to be a long road. There are going to be bumps along the way.
Yeah.
But, these sources have shown me that it's possible. We've got the knowledge, the tools, the opportunity to create a truly open and free Canadian market, one that benefits everyone.
I think so too. I mean, the potential here is enormous. We've seen that. But now it's up to all of us to make it happen.
So as you're going about your day-to-day, think about this issue. Think about how it might be affecting you. Ask yourself, could things be better? Could my life be better? Could Canada be better? If the answer is yes, well, then let's get to work. Let's build that better Canada together.
Well said. Never stop asking questions. Keep pushing for change. You can make a difference.
That brings us to the end of a deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little bit inspiring. We encourage you to keep learning about this issue, keep digging deeper. And until next time, stay curious.